So you want to know how to get super strong. Well, in today's show, we're going to be talking about intensification versus accumulation training. It's one of the big things that we use as a variable in the UMS program to make sure that our members are seeing constant gains in strength. Stick around, you're not going to want to miss this one. What's up, everyone? My name is Rad. I am one of the co-founders of Unity Gym and co-creators of the UMS, the Unified Movement System, where we turn driven people into superhumans. And the way we get such astonishing results with our members is that we've created a program that has a perfect balance between strength and flexibility. If you want to know how we do that, grab one of the free downloads, the Flexibility, Strength, or Nutrition Blueprint. And before I continue, I just want to double check, Richie, is that camera recording?
Yes.
God, man. Now we're recording. All right. So, Phil, how are you, buddy?
Yeah, very well. Spent the weekend diving deep into Seth Godin's podcast fellowship lessons I'm doing at the moment over the next 7 weeks to really upgrade the podcast game. So, yeah, it's exciting to be working on all this content, and that'll be, stuff that I'm going to be putting out independently, but hopefully as well get some useful things to really improve the sound and the content of this.
The sound of movement?
Yep.
To improve the sound of movement.
That's right. So if you haven't checked out the podcast, it's good. We've got people who are really seem to be consistently listening on that. So I'm glad that people are finding it like I think it's a good way to consume the content. So,
yeah, for sure. It's a big thing. It's going to be a revolution, these podcasts. So today we're talking about intensification training, and the reason why we're doing that is because for those of you that are in the UMS online coaching program, as long as you're past the first couple of phases, you are now going to be doing intensification training for this week and the next 4 weeks, including this week. So what does it mean? How does it differ from accumulation training? So Yanni and I spoke a little bit about volume in one of our shows last week or the week before, where we really talked about it's volume that is key. It's about this idea of, getting enough volume and the way you manipulate volume. So referring to talking about enough volume, it means it's the total work done on a specific muscle group or a specific movement. So the most common ways to manipulate volume to get more volume is to do more reps per set, to do more sets per exercise, or to do more exercises per muscle group, or to do more workouts per week on the same muscle group. So those are the main ways. Have you got anything else to add to that? Yep. So that's how we manipulate volume. Intensification or intensity, the way we manipulate intensity is by lifting more weight or by going to a harder progression of a calisthenics or body weight movement. So what does it mean when you're doing accumulation training, which is what we did last week and what we did for the last cycle? That means that the sets that you're going to be doing are going to be generally higher reps, lower weight, so the total amount of reps that you do in one workout is higher, meaning more volume, whereas intensification training means that you are generally doing higher weight, lower reps, or harder progressions, harder calisthenics progressions with lower reps. So what does that mean for you today? For those of you in the UMS online coaching program, it means that this week you're going to be doing 5 sets of 5 reps, and we're going to talk about how you're going to manipulate that over the next 4 weeks. So for those of you that the most common research shows that in order to effectively get hypertrophy of the muscles through accumulation training, that you generally need between 40 and 70 repetitions minimum per muscle group. So that seems to be the general consensus. For intensification training, to get stronger, you generally need between 25 to 50 repetitions minimum per muscle group. So there's different variables that you need to understand that you're playing with here. You got anything you want to add to this, Phil?
Intensification is all about lifting heavier stuff.
That's right.
That will be the thing that makes you stronger long term. So you can build up that really good base of muscle size with your hypertrophies at work, and that's generally that, as we've talked about, the lower rep range, a bit more time on attention. But we've got to lift strong to get strong. So,
that's right.
It is. It might feel like quite a different sort of session where you're used to really
very different.
Yeah, grinding out sort of these having to break up your sets of 12 into like three lots of 4 or something. But with your intensification one, it's really just knuckle in for 3 to 5 hard reps.
And everything has to come together to get a good intensification set, because the difference of getting your 4th rep compared to getting that 5th rep that you aimed for is that's a 20% reduction in volume if you miss that 1 rep, and that 1 rep is arguably where the majority of the real adaptation is going to come 100%. From. So your breath has to be on point, your setup for the lift has to be on point, the way that you move your body has to be on point. So there's a lot more going on, which is why.
There's a reason why you don't start with.
We don't start with intensification training. We get everybody to start with accumulation training, and people do that for several mesocycles, remembering that a mesocycle is 6 weeks. So people do that for 3, 4, 5 mesocycles. People will do accumulation training to accumulate fatigue in the muscles, accumulate knowledge of the movement. So if you're still new to the UMS, that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to still be doing accumulation training. There's no change there. But this episode is still going to be very important for you because you can know what's coming up. So let's now talk about, for those of you that have been with us for several mesocycles.
Just before we do, I just encourage people who are watching to get any questions that you want answered in, because that's what we really think is the most valuable part of doing this. And so any questions you can get in there, get them in now so we have time by the end of our rant on intensification.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So morning, Steve. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for saying hi. And anybody else that's watching, please say hi and ask us any questions.
And it doesn't need to be specifically on this topic. Ideally something around this, but if it's not, then we can always look at it in another video.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into talking about intensification training for this current mesocycle. So you've been with us for several mesocycles. You're ready to lift heavy. We're in the 2nd week of this mesocycle. So last week we did accumulation training just to get the body back into the swing of things after the deload/testing week. So for this week, we want everybody to do 5 sets of 5 reps. What does that mean? It means that only for your first 2 lifts of every workout, you do 5 sets of 5 reps. Everything after that is considered accumulation training, so you'll still do your 8 to 10 reps or 10 to 12 reps. Why is that? Well, when you're lifting maximally, so max strength, you only are good for max strength for the first 2 movements, and they have to be opposing muscle groups. I'm not talking about doing a bench press and a shoulder press as your first 2 movements, because both of those are going to detract the strength from each other. So by the time you've done 5 sets of 5 reps on your chest press and your bent over row, if you try and do pull-ups and shoulder press, there is 0 chance you're going to be able to lift maximal load, because you're already going to be fatigued in that upper body movement, in those upper body movements. So it's only those first 2 movements that you're going to be doing 5 sets of 5 reps on. Everything else you'll do between 3 and 5 sets of 8 to 10 reps. So the next thing that I want you to think about is this. When we're doing strength training, it's really important that on the bent arm strength days, on the Monday and the Thursday, you must do shoulder press and pull-ups first on one of those days, and bench press and bent over row, or rather vertical push-pull first on one day and horizontal push-pull first on the other day, because you need the opportunity to do both of those. The caveat to that is that if you... God damn it, I said caveat. I can't believe it. I've swore to myself that I'd never start saying caveat after how many times bloody Yanni says it.
Really?
Watch some of the old... Take note next time you do a show with Yanni, how many times he says caveat. So the exception to that is... Once you've done your testing week, if you realize that your shoulder press is really weak and you want to prioritize shoulder pressing, then you would do your shoulder press and pull-ups first on both days, and then you do your bench press and bent over row or your horizontal push-pull second on both those days. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think it's just, I guess a good reason to understand why is, like, with these sort of heavier movements, like these complex bilateral movements, it's just so key to get them right, and you really want to drill down, get the intensity and the focus. But then, when moving on to your single arm stuff, you've got like balance components to it. They're often a bit more sort of unstable. So you really want to drop the weight back a little bit and work from there. Now with the 5x5, I think as soon as you kind of go, especially when you're new to lifting and you're still dealing with all the different technique things to figure out, I think 5 is such a nice number because you can, break it down into like, okay, I'm going to do like 3 really nice reps, and then you kind of over halfway there, and then 2 more. Right. So especially when you're new to this intensity, having like the focus around technique is so key. So I really like that idea of break it down, get 3 out, pause.
And it also gives you that magic 25 reps when you do 5x5. So you do get that the minimum amount required to achieve, substantial strength development on that muscle group and that movement.
Yeah, and it is one thing that I've talked about a bit before, but I really do encourage when you are new to the program, new to movements, to chunk things like that. So focusing on 3 reps at a time, like 2 reps at a time. Even if you're doing a set of 12, maybe setting it as 3 lots of 4, so you can really focus your intensity on the technique. Because if you start to just kind of zone out and just keep going for it, you'll inevitably find the last once you get kind of beyond 6, if you're not paying attention, it's going to often sort of slip away. So really like the idea of chunking down for your technique.
Yep. Now, for those of you who are time poor or who find that you lose motivation after a certain amount of time in a workout, or you get overwhelmed with the amount of work that I sometimes talk about when I talk about the harder workouts or the workouts that have more volume in them, all you need to do is do your 5 sets of 5 on the A1 and A2 movements, and then you can literally just do 3 sets, maybe 4 sets on the supplementary movements, so the B1, B2 and the C1 and C2. Just keep it simple like that, and you'll, even if you just get 6 movements done in a workout, so 3 lots of 2 paired exercises. In the UMS, sometimes we go up to 8 movements in some of the programs, but again, that's only for those of you that are really keen and are willing to do a 1.5 to 2 hour workout. And that should take you an hour to an hour and a half if you're doing your flexibility in between and you're not wasting time. So that said, what about those of you who are super, super, super keen and are willing to do a 2-hour workout?
/ have the flexibility and the time to do
That's
it.
exactly right.
There's plenty of keen beans out there who love to be doing it, but
but who are actually going to be able to do it. Because if you're not going to be able to do it, if it's going to put too much of a stress on your life, it's not worth it. You shouldn't even try, because trying and failing is going to really stuff with your head. So just set a goal to work out for the amount of time that you can actually do. So, but I know that there are some of you out there that are going to want to give this a try. What we're actually going to do is we're going to reduce the reps per set and increase the amount of sets per workout as each week goes on, so that you gradually lift more weight and do as each workout goes on, but we're still going to be getting those 25 reps. So this week, 5 sets of 5 reps. Next week, 6 sets of 4 reps. The week after and the last week, 8 sets of 3 reps. So we're actually going to be doing 24 reps like that.
Doesn't count. You won't get stronger.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you missed that 1 rep.
Yeah.
Yep. So 5 sets of 5 this week, 6 sets of 4 next week, 8 sets of 3 for week 4 and week 5. Now, you really need to be committed for that. You need to have some time to do 8 sets, and by God, do you need some mental discipline, because by the time you get to that 5th set and you've still got 3 more sets where you have to lift a hell of a lot of weight on your squats or your deadlifts, oh man, it's so easy to just say, I'm just going to cut this away. So if those of you are out there that can commit to a 2-hour workout, want to give that a try, then do it. Post your results, post your trials and tribulations. Let us know how you're going.
Yeah, and I'd really recommend people who are doing the 3 reps to have someone around to spot or at least, even if they're not right on next to you, just being close by to help out if you need, because with how we've explained how to do sort of 3 reps, it's not about you're barely able to
lift the last one,
you still want to have a rep in the tank. It's all about 3 really good form reps.
That's
but
right. Yeah.
It is still good when you're getting down to that 3. There's sort of a big there's a kind of the margin of error there where you could find yourself in a bit of trouble if you haven't
absolutely.
If you haven't practiced that before. It's a bit of a skill, kind of knowing how much you can confidently do.
Oh man, absolutely. And I'm going to say this is a really big insight, so pay close attention to what I'm about to say now. When you're lifting 5 reps per set, the amount of weight that you're lifting is heavy enough. When you go down to the 3 rep range, you are lifting some serious weight, and you need to know what you're doing. So this is not for people that are still new to this kind of training. This is for people that have been training with us for several months and really are confident with all the basic lifts. And you do not do this on a lift that you're not 100% confident of with the technique. That you don't go below 5 reps for a lift like that. So if you're still working out how to do a squat, but you've done several mesocycles with the UMS, you can definitely do the 5 sets of 5, but don't go below that rep range. It's just too dangerous, and there's too much risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with
Is that a mic drop? Is that?
yeah, no, it's very sound advice. And with spotting, like, oh man, spotting is just something that like does my head in after training in sort of gyms where everyone's really switched on and knows what they're doing.
Do it, yeah.
But those videos of those gym fails where you go and you see people like squatting over each other while they're doing a bench press and pretty much sitting on their chest while it's doing it. Like when you're spotting, and it's really like these gym here and base gym where I used to train as well have just ruined me for fitness firsts and the like, where you go in and you just see people getting so close or like pretty much hugging them as they're doing a squat. Like with a spot, just like stand back a little bit, be there if you need it, like assist with a bit of a push, but just don't be so in someone else's grill while you're spotting. And if they need you to be there to pretty much lift them up as you go, then tell your partner like, hey, this is too heavy for you, because it's so important. Like you can just really hurt yourself and others if you are using spots inappropriately. Yeah,
I'd even go a little bit more specific than what you've said. I love what you've said, and I think it is a really good thing to cover is spotting. And I love the way I learned this from Cam and Bass. Cam Orob and Bass Orob, our friends of ours who are just ridiculously strong people. And Cam, before I ever trained with Cam, when he spotted me, people would spot you for multiple reps.
Yeah.
And Cam would just sit there and he'd go, come on. And then by the time the spot is required, he just grabs the weight and pulls it off you. And that makes so much sense to me. And then when I delve deeper into asking Yanni about that and asking some of our coaches, Yanni's got more experience weightlifting with I do, so I go to him for my weightlifting advice. The idea is that if the barbell is still moving up, if it is moving up against gravity, you're not spotting. You allow them to continue moving it. Once the barbell stops moving up, you spot, and you are not now spotting another couple of reps with them. This is for intensification training, different for accumulation training. You literally take the weight and re-rack it from them.
And as a person lifting, you're still pushing. So
it's not like you're letting go and letting them lift it. You're still giving it maximal effort.
The spotter doesn't have to do like a bicep curl of however much you're bench pressing. And a really good example of this was with Bass. He was on the Base Body Babes, which is his wife and his sister-in-law's story the other day, where Dinny J, who's she weighs about 50 kilos, he was benching over 200 and she was spotting for him. So there's no way that she could lift 240 kilos, but he's still pushing, and he just needed that little bit of extra 10%, guidance. Yeah, exactly right.
There's a caveat to that argument.
There it is. See that? Yanni's in here with a caveat. Yeah.
There is a type of overload technique where you do what's called forced reps, where someone...
But I just said that. I said that this is for intensification training only. Yeah. So Yanni's saying that there is a type of overload technique in bodybuilding, but it's an accumulation method, and that's where you do forced reps, where basically you can't lift the weight anymore, but somebody spots you. But we're not talking about that right now. We'll talk about that when we talk about accumulation training. You're welcome to come down and take caveats. The seat, mate. And caveats. Yeah, Yanni wants to talk about caveats.
Which means it's a Latin phrase.
Get your own mic.
Here we go. Yeah.
Literally be warned.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, when you've got the mic, mate, you can talk about caveats for as long as you want. But I've got the mic here, so enough of that sidetracking.
I think spotting is really important, and it is such a good safety tool when used well, and it can really mess you up and injure you if you do it. Because one of the problems with having these sort of safety measures around your lifting is people can get sloppy and lazy, and that's just such a unpleasant way to hurt yourself or maybe others.
Yeah, and unfortunately, so many of the spotting fails that you see on YouTube, it's not the spotter that's stuffed up, it's the lifter. Like the lifter was just lifting so much too much weight for them, had no business lifting that much weight. They should have been learning how to lift the weight rather than lifting maximal weight, and so that when the spotter tries to help them, they've still got no ability to control it, and they just crush themselves with it. And it shouldn't be like that. Like when you actually do need to spot someone, at least the way we do it at Unity Gym, as the spotter, you don't need to do that much. You just help them that little bit because they're giving it everything and they miss the lift, and you just kind of grab it and pull it back for them,
Yeah, so if you're bringing other people into your workout and having them spot you, like respect that they're helping you and don't put them in a situation that could endanger them.
And don't presume that they know how to spot.
Yeah.
Explain to them exactly what you want them to do. So I want you to put your hands here. When I explain to them the concept of the bar moving up or down, another really good concept that I love with spotting that Bass used to always talk about is crowding the bar. Like a spotter shouldn't crowd the bar. They shouldn't be sitting there ready to grab you. Like if you want to look at the way these guys spot, if you go to Australian Strength Coach Instagram page, there almost every video there's someone spotting them, but you very rarely actually see them grab the bar. They're just sitting there ready, and then when they finish the set, the spotter grabs the bar and guides it back onto their rack for them. And if they stuff that rep up, they're there to help them. And if you just spend 5 or 10 minutes looking on their page, because those guys are just lifting ridiculous amounts of weight, so they're always there to spot each other.
They're often doing 1, 2, or 3 RMs, so really high intensity, which is what we're talking about.
They very rarely miss a rep either.
Yeah.
Often when they miss a rep, you know about it.
That's right. Yanni's
saying
they very rarely miss a rep either, and when they do miss a rep, you know about it, which is true.
Yeah.
So that's some food for thought. For those of you that are in the UMS online coaching program, if you weren't taking notes, you may need to re-watch this because it's important that you know what you're doing for the next 5 weeks. And the whole idea is I'm going to talk about one more thing about intensification training, which is when you do accumulation training, this is a really layman term description of this, but you're training the muscles. We're trying to hypertrophy the muscles. We're working on the muscle fibers themselves. When you're training intensification training, you're training more of the nervous system. So you're training the neuromuscular connection where we're teaching the brain how to activate more
motor units.
Motor units, thank you, Phil. And a motor unit is the ending of a nerve that contracts muscle fibers, right?
So basically,
it's when a nerve splits into all its different endings that connect to the muscle fibers themselves.
Yeah, so basically if you think of like your muscle is, you've got 100% of the fibers in your muscles, and then for each motor unit, there'll be a different percentage of muscle fibers that are innervated by a certain motor unit. So you might have you have all these motor units throughout your quadriceps, and they might be sort of all there's small ones and large ones. So the small ones might be getting 2 to 3% of the muscle units, and they're the really efficient ones that if you're just walking around, you just need low level contraction. Your brain's sending enough signal to just contract those because the body is just incredibly efficient, which is just why humans have been so successful, but also why we're also overweight and unhealthy these days. That efficiency is so ingrained. But then you have larger and larger motor units which get to different types of muscle fibers. So instead of those efficient fat burning low intensity ones, the larger motor units where you might be getting sort of arbitrary numbers, but 10 to 15% of your the muscle fibers that are innervated by these motor units, they have a higher cost to use, so they're less efficient, but you've got potential with those motor units to produce so much more force. So and again, I've talked about this before and how amazing the brain is that people in times of stress and need can activate these motor units and do incredible things like picking cars off babies. So that's how this works, and this intensification training is all about learning how to tap into that. So you've given yourself a really good foundation of muscle size and everything.
The fibers are ready, the tendons, the connective tissues hopefully strengthened a little bit.
100%. So you've prepared your body in all those other ways, so that now the dangerous things with being able to access these larger motor units is if you're not prepared like that. If you haven't done the training, that's where you get muscle tears, you get tendon injuries, you get avulsion fractures where you actually get pull the bone off because you just haven't prepared it for that kind of load. So now we've done a few months of that, and that's why it's so important that you do spend the time doing your accumulation training and the foundation system, so you're giving yourself a really good base. And then it's all about learning that intensity. And you can see with powerlifters, they do all sorts of things to enhance their ability to activate those larger motor units. They'll slap each other on the back, they'll yell and scream, they'll get really focused, listen to a music that will pump them up, and all of these things, it's tapping into the brain and encouraging that sort of activation. So.
So it's really important to understand that. And then the next thing to understand about that is that when you do accumulation training, it is totally acceptable and actually a method and a strategy that people will use to grow more muscle, that you will go to fatigue and failure in each set and then drop the amount of weight, so reducing the intensity as the workout goes on, so that every set in itself is taking you to failure and really causing as much damage to the muscle fibers as possible. These little micro tears that cause the muscles to, repair, regrow, and grow bigger. Whereas in intensification training, you don't want to train that way. You want to either stay on the same weight or increase the amount of weight that you're lifting, increase the intensity, I should say, as each set goes on. And the reason why we want to do that is because you want the body, you want the brain, you want the nervous system to remember what you did on that last set. That's an important thing. So, you really want to make sure that you're not starting on a heavy weight and going, oh, wow, this is good for 3 sets, but now I got to drop the weight. It's better to start on a lower weight and go, oh, that was easy, I'm going to go up a little bit. And then, oh, that was easy, and go up a little bit. Or start on a weight that you think, okay, I'm going to be able to do this and I might be able to go up. And then you go through 2 or 3 sets and you think, wow, this is actually really hard. I'm just going to stay on this same weight. But yeah, dropping weight when you do intensification training as the sets go on is not beneficial to your strength
and that comes with
development.
practice as well. So
A lot of practice.
If this is your first time of doing intensification training, just like we've talked about with testing week, treat the first couple ones as an experiment. Just start a bit lower than you think.
Start lower,
and then just learn the process of what it's like to actually lift with intensity. And then the next time you come around, you can be like, okay, last time I probably undershot a little bit, but learn a lot, didn't hurt yourself, good. Take those lessons and then try a bit more intensity. And
if you did it the right way in every workout, you would increase the amount of weight that you lift by a very small amount, by 2 to 3% in each workout, if you do it the right way.
You should be...
Yanni's
and
saying
you can
something
repeat
here.
this online. You should be learning to fail without a loss of form.
You should be, Yanni's saying, which I love, you should be learning to fail without a loss of form. So what that means is that it's like what Phil said, you would actually have another rep in the tank, but it wouldn't be a pretty rep. So you learn to, when you do your 5th rep, that 5th rep is like, you just get it out, but the form doesn't, you don't detract from the form. And you would have been at, like, what I like to do, but this
Kamran's question, I think this is going to be really useful because you're talking about this here. So he says, for those of us who've just done testing week the other week, when we do 5 reps and below, what's a good intensity to aim for? At 5 reps, is our 6RM a good target?
That is perfect. Couldn't have been explained better. Yeah. What I like to do is I like to do a method called last set to failure, Kumaran. And you do need a spotter for this, or you need to be very, very experienced, which means you would do 4 sets of 5 reps at your 6RM. For those of you that don't understand what that means, it means 6 repetition max. It means it's an amount of weight that you could do 6 reps on under the most strenuous circumstances. If someone held a gun to your head and said do a 7th rep, you wouldn't be able to do it. So that's what 6RM means, which means that you're doing 5 reps on a weight where you think, oh, you know what, I could have done one more. But then on the last set, you go to failure. Now, again, safe failure. You're either with a spotter or, I did, today I did a whole bunch of sets at 8 RM. And then on my last set, I did 10 reps. And my 10th rep wasn't pretty, but it was safe. I didn't need anyone to run over and help me.
That comes from 15 years of experience.
Decades of experience, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, you really need everything that we're talking about here. I think this is another really key insight. Like, we're explaining all of these methods. This doesn't mean that if you've never done this before, you go straight out and you try this. If you're hearing this for the first time and you're thinking, okay, I'm ready to try some intensification training, take away from this, do 5 sets of 5 reps at a weight that is lower than what you could actually lift. That's what you should be doing. All of these other little things are like the icing on the cake, So Kumaran is somebody who trains with us at Unity Gym 5 days a week. I know what he can do, and I'm confident that if we give him this advice that he's going to understand it. He also trains with people at Unity Gym that know how to spot. So be aware of that. There's a lot of things that have to happen, because I've seen people get crushed under a barbell on a bench press, and a squat even worse. I've seen people not understand how to dump a squat bar, and they get to the bottom and they try and get up and they fold forward and the barbell just crushed them. Do you remember that?
Sidetrack. Did you see Did you see Aaron Kroll, who briefly was at this gym trying to snatch 190 kilos the other day?
No.
It was full on.
Was it
Like
ugly?
he went 8 attempts at it, and he posted one, and he he had to bail out and dive forward, and you could see the bar kind of clipped a bit on the way through.
Yeah.
So yeah.
190 kilos of an Olympic snatch. This guy is a weapon.
And he's about 6'3" as well, so the bar's going a long way up.
Yeah,
it's,
man.
It's mental.
I would add, learning to fail is...
Do you want to come and talk to the microphones? No, yeah. Yanni's saying...
So we'll just sit here in
What's
silence.
Yanni saying? What are you saying,
They
Yanni?
can hear me when I talk. Those
Okay,
might
alright.
pick it up.
Okay.
It's just not as loud. Learning to fail is very important.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah.
And especially in a squat where there's so many variables that can buckle under the weight, but it has to be the legs that fail.
Yeah.
So you can't take a squat to your maximum, to your true rep maximum, until you can stay postured up, like
Yep.
until it's the legs that fail. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's a leg exercise.
Yeah,
That's a great
yeah,
point.
Yanni. Yeah, so if you didn't hear that, Yanni's saying learning to squat is a critical part of strength development.
Learning to fail.
Learning to fail. Learning to fail.
Squat is definitely good.
But like with something like a squat, it's that you have to understand that the failure that you're looking for is in the legs. It's not in your form. So it's not failing when your body just buckles and you can barely get up.
Yeah.
It's failing where with good posturing up with your body, with pulling your elbows back, keeping your core rigid, that you get to a point where you do that one rep and you think, man, I won't be able to get up cleanly if I did another
So
rep.
if you're failing because you're folding in half and your back is bending because you've not been able to maintain that form,
You
then
actually failed 1 or 2 reps before that and you didn't realize it.
Yeah, well, you've really got to work on that technique so that
Yeah.
you know that you can really keep everything else rigid, so that for a leg exercise like the squat, that it's your legs that are failing.
And this is where the volume comes in. This is why we got to beat this drum more and more and more, because no matter how much we say it, people don't get it. How do you get to this point? It's volume. It's repetition.
It's good quality volume.
Good quality volume, learning how
So-
to do it. So
I just really, I've said it a few times now, but like if you are doing 12 to 15 reps, like chunk it down. So especially if you're new to these movements, like make sure you're getting them right. Like it's no point doing 6 good reps and then doing, 9 crappy
Yeah.
reps. Like break it down so that, even if you have to take, like if you're doing squats, for example, like even if you stand there for a second, have 2 or 3 breaths where you're like, okay, mentally reset, go again.
Yeah.
Like that's just so much more beneficial than practicing pull form.
Yep. So I think a good thing to cover now before we finish is, for some of you that are really new to this whole UMS, are going to be saying, well, how do I know when I'm ready to do intensification training? And that would be a really good question. You would start after you've done your first testing week. You would be doing sets of 12 to 15 reps, chunking them down into small sections like what Phil's spoken about, meaning that if you were doing sets of 15 reps, you might do 3 sets of 5 or 3 sets of 4 and then 1 set of 3, meaning you don't put the bar back like you'll do your 4 squats and then you'll stop still with the bar on your back and you'll rethink about the cues and then you'll go again and you'll just do 3 sets of that. And then after you've done that for 1 cycle, you'll drop down to the 10 to 12 rep range. And so now you're lifting a little bit more weight, 10 to 12 reps, but now you'll do 4 sets. And then the next mesocycle, you'll drop down to the 8 to 10 rep range and you'll do 5 sets. And when you can do 5 sets of good technique of 8 reps, so you're getting your 40 reps and your technique's good, that's when you can say, all right, let's try a cycle where we drop down to the 5 reps.
What I want to see is that people make the most of the UMS and the fact that the mastermind group is there.
Yeah.
Like when you get to that stage, film it.
Yep.
Put it on
Show
there.
us.
Be like, hey,
Yeah.
do you think
am I ready?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
it's
Don't
such-
train in this group for 4 or 6 months and then post your first video.
Yeah.
Like show us along the way. Say, hey, am I ready for this? Because that's what we're here for. We want to, and we did this whole show today on this topic because we couldn't find any good questions that anybody had asked, except for Josh's question that we're
Plenty
going
of
to.
Physio Friday questions.
Yeah, we're going to be
Well,
Josh. Your question on Josh Dorr on. Frozen shoulder, we're going to be answering on Physio Friday. Josh wants to know how to fix a frozen shoulder at the most basic level.
It's taking off.
Physio
Yeah,
Friday.
Physio Friday, yeah.
It's a thing.
Yanni's all over it. Yanni named that. He's very proud of himself.
Nah.
Phil did. Oh, sorry. I've taken your thunder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
what's up?
look, frozen shoulder at the most basic level, you just need to have a teaspoon of concrete with a glass of Harden Up and just get on with it.
We'll go into it
No,
on
I'm
Friday.
joking.
It's just one of those, like my mum had it and it was just like such a
That's
rough
brutal.
thing.
I've rehabbed 3 frozen shoulders at Unity Gym now, and it is a horrible thing to see people doing.
Yeah, so no, we'll get into it, but we'll get that for Physio Friday because we really do want to focus on like helping the members here with strength, flexibility.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's get some questions in this week about intensification training because, in all honesty, there is a lot to talk about, and I really want to see some more questions on this. So, for those of you that are watching the show, please ask some questions about what we're doing for the next 4 weeks in this mesocycle, doing intensification training.
But now to finish off, to sum up what we've talked about today in 20 seconds or less.
So we're talking about the idea of moving from accumulation training into intensification training, the importance of technique, what you need to have done in order to be ready to do it safely, and what the goal of the workout is, that you're training your nervous system rather than the muscles. So it's not about going to failure and dropping the weight. It's about staying on the same weight or even going up in weight as the sets go on. Ramp loading, Yanni's talking about, takes a lot of time, a lot of practice, and something that's a lot of fun. Strap yourself in for the journey. This is not something that you are going to master in the next 4 weeks. This is something that Yanni and Rich Richard and Phil and me have been working on for years and years and years, and we're still getting better and better at it, and that's a really great thing.
Keeps it interesting.
Keeps it interesting. I wouldn't, otherwise you're going to get bored and you're going to look for something else to do, but this is a really nice, rewarding, long journey. So embrace the process, embrace being the beginner, be safe, post your videos, let us help you, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, that's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that
It's
far.
the consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.